Evening, and thank you for joining us for this evening's Beyond Access series. Our session this evening is entitled Transition and Post-Secondary Planning for Students with Disabilities. My colleagues this evening will provide you great information in which we ask for you to share if you have a student who has an IEP in the New York City's public school who is transitioning to post-secondary education this year or next academic school year. This content is for you to share out. We do encourage you to look at previous Beyond Access series sessions on our YouTube channel, which link will be provided to you as well at the end of this webinar session. And we'll also provide you next actionable steps. We always like to make sure that you're what we like to call warm and informed, warm to knowing all the great information and content, and informed about how you can proceed going forward. But with no further ado, let me pass the microphone over to my colleague, Jonathan. Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Andre. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome to Transition and Post-Secondary Planning for Students with Disabilities workshop. My name is Jonathan Santiago, and I am the Executive Director of Transition and College Access Centers at the Central Special Education Office, and it is such a pleasure and privilege to be here. I am also here with my esteemed colleague, Ms. Audrey Mangan, who is the Manhattan Borough Instructional Lead for the Manhattan Transition and College Access Center. It is our pleasure to be here, and we look forward to going through this session today. So we're going to get started with my colleague, Audrey Mangan. And Audrey, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Good greetings, everyone. I appreciate everyone coming to see this presentation, and I'm excited for all of our young people who are moving from high school to college and career. And we really want to give you the most updated information for your transition and that post-secondary planning, because there are a lot of wonderful things happening in your future. And if you can take advantage of them, you'll find some fantastic outcomes. You've already had some great things happen. If you're student or yourself, if you're a junior or a senior in high school, or if you're the parent of a junior or a senior in high school, transition is a great time. It can also be a little scary, but we're hoping that our presentation tonight supports you in moving your student along in a way that's most optimal for your family and for you as the individual. So moving right along, we are the Transition and College Access Centers. We work for you in the different boroughs throughout the city, all 5 boroughs: Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island. And what we want to do for you is to support the movement from school to home, from school to post-secondary transition, by making your transition and for your child as seamless as possible. And we support the students in obtaining their post-secondary goals by thinking about their 3 areas of post-secondary life: academic, social emotional, and vocational growth, and making sure that we're able to support multiple pathways to graduation and long-term success after high school, because we know now that what happens in high school has long-term effects on the future, and opportunities that students have now in their high school time may not come again until later on. But if we can get some of those tasks and portions out of the way now, mainly, let's say, for example, work-based learning, will have better outcomes long-term. So that's what the TCAC centers do. We support students as they're moving along, and we add those supports to schools and to families to ensure long-term positive outcomes. So our goals and our work: we connect with work-based learning experiences but through community-based organizations, also known as CBOs, schools, and local businesses. We're coming up on our summer youth employment season, where all of the TCAC offices are connecting with different groups to find work sites for our students. So this way we can make sure that we're following the students' lead and where they want to work, and connecting with local businesses, because we know small business is the backbone of our city and, of course, our country. We also provide access to college and career learning experiences, so we can support students and schools if they want to engage in one of the many diploma pathways for students to obtain a diploma or get an exit credential. Whatever the student's pathway is, we can support it, and that is part of what we do. We also train school staff on the administration of age-appropriate transition assessments. So this way students can really get the most updated information about what they want to do long-term and how they can update their information in their individualized education plan. So really the student voice comes out, and we train school staff in those areas. We also engage families in the transition planning process by supporting family-supported workshops such as this and other information session. We also connect with school PTAs to really give school-specific and larger information to families throughout the DOE. We also create and lead professional development for staff in the areas of college and career readiness, mainly giving out, we are a CTLE vendor supporting teachers in keeping their licenses as the different requirements of New York State licensure ask. So we are engaged in a lot of different activities. Our stakeholders, number one here is students. We are a student-centered office. We follow what it is that students are interested in. As students indicate what their long-term goals are in their IEPs, we follow that and find them work-based learning experiences connected to the areas where they want to eventually work. We also support families by giving individualized transition consultancies, so families can really get great updated information about college, career, how they can support their young person with a disability, and really get every opportunity going for that person before and even after they leave the DOE. We support the educators and school staff by ensuring that they are well aware of every agency out there that's providing support for students. And we also support them in different programs that they have, such as our training opportunity program, which is a school-based, work-based learning experience. We connect with different community-based organizations by having them come to schools at our invitation so they can share what wonderful opportunities they're offering our young people in the city and outside of the city. We connect with business entities for the different professional fields students want to go into. For example, here in Manhattan, students who are interested in government and public policy get connected to the different business districts in the borough of Manhattan. So we connect with public and private businesses to really get those work sites going so students can flourish. And we also connect with post-secondary institutions, definitely the CUNYs and the SUNYs, but also the private colleges, so we can really support students once they leave us by helping them with their own self-advocacy so they can connect with different college the offices of accessibility so they can get different accommodations under the Americans with Disabilities Act. We also, our outcomes for this seminar this evening are to support you in reviewing transition and post-secondary pathways for students with disabilities in the areas of college, job placement, independent living, training, and direct connections with post-secondary organizations. So all of these different pieces are going to be very important for a successful transition from the world of high school into the world of college and career. Because if we think about transition, we've got employment, independent living, and vocational training. So all of these different pieces are very important to long-term success for students. So when we think about our transition domains, we've got education and training, and that could be where the student is choosing to go to either a vocational opportunity, such as co-op tech's postgraduate program, or they would like to go to a vocational school, or they'd like to pick up a credential from a CUNY or a SUNY, all of which are in service of obtaining living wage employment for New York City. So all of our goals with education and training is always leaning towards what gets students closer to the goal of independence. Certainly independent living, maintaining your connections with family, but being able to financially provide for yourself. Some of our students are dealing with living in temporary housing, for example, or they're coming out of foster care and they need support in the areas of independent living, because there are a lot of wonderful programs out there for our young people starting out on their own, but there are also some great programs for our young people who are still very connected to family. And how do we support students in independent living? That goes back to our CBO or community-based organization connections. Also, when we think about employment, what types of employment are our students interested in? What is emotionally fulfilling for them? And what connects to, like we said before, a living wage in New York City? Because we have to be able to have our students be able to provide for themselves. So these are the three main transition domains when we think about success after high school, because we know prior to leaving high school with the IEP, there are a lot of services and supports that are given to students and families. After they leave high school, students have to be able to ask for them. So when we think about transition, transition is definitely a results-oriented process that focuses on improving the academic and functional achievement of the student with a disability to facilitate the student's movement from school to post-school activities. Again, prior to leaving school, students are entitled to many, many services. Once they leave school, they are eligible, but they're only eligible if they ask for those services and if students have access to documents that say, for example, that the student has a disability, like does the student have access to their own IEP? When we think about post-school outcomes and activities, those include but are not limited to those include but are not limited to post-secondary, continuing, or adult education. They are whatever the student chooses to do after high school, but connected to all of the areas that students need to engage with, so they are able to live their lives in a way that is fulfilling for them and works for their lifestyles. Transition services, those are a coordinated set of activities. There is a portion of the IEP that connects to the coordinated set of activities, and that's where each student gets a unique set of processes that the school and the family agree to that will help students move nicely along in their transition from high school to post-secondary. So the coordinated set of activities are very important for students. They're always thinking about the post-school outcome, and this all falls under the heading of transition. So transition services, those are where you get those post-school activities, and students are able to think about what it is they want, and they should be very individualized for each student, because each student's needs, strengths, preferences, interests, abilities, and aspirations are going to be different. And each student's community is also going to be different, and their community can be where they live, it can be their cultural background, it can be with family support, it can be without family support. So we have to remember that each student's needs and preferences are different, but each set of coordinated activities in each student's IEP should also be addressing those individualized student needs. So when we think about transition, transition definitely starts in the elementary school years. There is a New York State set of standards called the CDOS K through 12 Learning Occupational Studies Standards that happen in really kindergarten. Even in the pre-K classes, students are discussing what they want to be when they grow up, who do they see in their community, and those elementary school activities support long-term post-secondary goals. So students learn what it is they want. They also engage in different activities in school that support readiness, engagement, persistence, and being resilient. And in elementary school, part of what the students are learning may be how to cope with non-preferred activities. And that's a really important skill for long-term employment. And at age 12, that's when schools start to administer what's known as the level 1 vocational assessment. And that's when the school asks the students exactly what it is you want to be when you get older, when you leave high school. And that can certainly change, but they start the conversation in elementary school at age 12 to really get students and families thinking. Then when we start in middle school, those transition goals and services start when in the year the student turns age 15 or younger, sometimes it's 14, students come to their own IEP meetings, and the school provides opportunities to increase independence in school, and the family gets in the discussion about increasing independence at home. And usually in middle school, that's when we start to explore community and leisure activities. Those can be after school clubs or volunteer opportunities. So that happens in middle school. And then in high school, really at the beginning of the age of 14, students can participate in work-based learning experiences and other employment opportunities. They can start to think about the CDOS commencement credential, and that can support them in those pathways to graduation. Then before the student leaves high school, we want to be sure that they're connected to different external agencies and community-based organizations. Thinking about adult living. For students who are still taking the school bus in high school, Schools and families really need to start looking into travel training if that's appropriate for the student, because we have to remember that there is no school bus in college. So we want our young people to get familiar with public transportation, and to see what it is, what's appropriate for them. And then we want our students to think about college, vocational, and other programs directly after high school. So some of the questions that we want to consider for our students are: where is the student going vocationally? Are they interested in competitive employment? Do they need supportive employment? Are they interested in volunteer work? And all of those different pieces are certainly appropriate for the resume. So we want to remember that all of these pieces, especially those volunteering, can be documented in the student resume. Will the student need post-secondary education or training? There are some students who leave our high schools and go directly into union jobs for the city, where they get training on the job, which is fantastic. And those are usually our students in our CTE programs that are providing direct employment from high school, and they receive post-secondary training on the job, which is wonderful. Where will the student live, and what supports will be needed? For some students, like we mentioned previously, temporary housing, they need support. The students in foster care, we need to provide that bridge to where are they going to live, and how can they make sure that they're financially able to continue living their lifestyle. So that those are all different parts of what we think about for transition. And then what will the student's transportation needs be? Like we mentioned before, for travel training, can the student be independent? Will the student have to get familiar with paratransit for the city? Will the student start taking, or can the student already take public transportation? So transportation becomes a big issue, especially for receiving travel training, and it's better to do travel training while the student is in school so they can get those different supports while they're going to school. How will the student maintain his or her social life? What's going on with friends and their different activities outside of school? Are there social groups that the school and the family would like to consider having their child be a part of? So that is also a big piece. What kind of leisure activities will the student participate in? A lot of students get involved in clubs and different activities, especially athletics. So how can the student continue those once they leave high school, especially if that's a big part of their socialization? How will the student meet their need for medical care, including health insurance? We know most students are on their parents' health insurance, and that lasts until 26. But if the student needs to connect with the marketplace to obtain health insurance, how are they going to do that? And have we talked about that yet? And what community agencies can help, and how can they be accessed? All of these different pieces can be supported by the school prior to that last IEP meeting before exiting or graduating. So beginning in middle school, those initial vocational assessments where the school is talking to the student, the parent, different teachers of the student, getting the information about what it is the student wants to do. That starts in that first year the child turns 12. And then that conversation creates those transition goals and services, where when the student turns 15 or younger, they can start to think about the services that the school can provide, what types of agencies can be there. A very important piece is having students be invited to attend their IEP meetings, because students should know what their learning strengths are, what are their areas of growth, and how can they be an active participant in their lives and learning, and really understand how they learn and how they best can connect with larger society. And then again, having the students increase independence in school, at home, and then exploring those community leisure activities. And a big part is that transition folder, which is an online folder that all of the vocational assessments get uploaded into, and the parents and the student can view what's going in the folder, and that transition folder supports them with their work-based learning experiences, because necessary documents that student needs to engage in work-based learning, let's say, for example, like working papers, things of that nature, summer youth application information, all of that stuff gets put in the transition folder, and the families can view it and the students can view it, and it's a great repository for those types of documents. In high school, annually, the school will talk to the student and the family in the form of what's known as a vocational assessment, so they can inform all aspects of the IEP. They really think about the transition goals and the services that reflect what it is the student wants to do and the long-term plan for life after high school. The transition folder, which was started in the middle school, gets transferred to the high school, and the high school maintains and adds to it. The student starts to participate in work-based learning experiences and employment opportunity. The school maintains updated career plans and employability profile. If necessary, the student can meet the CDOS commencement credential if that's what they're going for, or they can get the use the CDOS as a pathway to graduation. Then students can partner with students, connect the students and families to external agencies in high school, and then really get into researching and confirming potential adult living options. Again, going for that travel training, and then continuing to explore and now applying for college, vocational, and other programs. So when we think about the measurable post-secondary goals section, that is a section of the IEP that really puts the student's needs, preferences, and interests right out there, so everybody who accesses that document knows what the student wants to do long term. So they are not set in stone, they can change, but we do want students and families to really think about how education and training connects to their measurable post-secondary goal, how employment connects to that, and how independent living. And the goals for that are really written using the student's own words and voice to answer what do you want to do when you finish high school? If you go to college, what do you want to study? And where do you plan on living? So we can really tailor the supports to the student and really individualize everything. So when we're thinking about work-based learning for students with disabilities, we want to think about here the term emphasis on the learning, where students can engage in different activities where they can learn to work, learn to develop those soft skills, which is we have some great programs here in New York City Public Schools. So our activities create those relationships between employers and schools, and it provides structured learning experiences. Mainly, we're connecting the workplace experiences to classroom experiences. For example, for workplace experience, if you have to read and understand your employer's handbook, classroom experience, that's your English class, learning new vocabulary, learning technical writing, understanding content. And that it includes career awareness, because sometimes our students may be interested in a a broad topic such as information technology, but once they find out about how much they're compensated for cybersecurity, oh, that exploration really narrows their choices down to something they really want to do. And the work-based learning focuses on helping students develop those transferable skills, mainly those soft skills, for post-secondary education to the workplace. Being on time for class, connected to being on time for your workplace experience. So those things all matter and they all count. So what is work-based learning in a nutshell? It provides the students the opportunity to learn technical, academic, and employability skills. And each field is different in terms of their technical skills. So students learn really what their chosen field is like. Work-based learning can also include activities such as researching different careers, attending college and career fairs, and participating in community-based work experience. And this way, students learn what it is they're supposed to be doing on the job once they start the job. And work-based learning can also tell kids, like, well, maybe you're not interested in this career and we can find another one. That's not a problem. The main goal of work-based learning is to help students develop skills for employment and education after high school, because it's easy to get initial workplace concerns out of the way if you do it in high school rather than taking on a full-time employment opportunity after you become an adult. So workplace learning really prepares students for their future careers. And we know that the data supports students engaging in work-based learning with being able to engage in job retention. So accommodations, reasonable accommodations are changes that remove barriers and provide a child with equal access to learning. Accommodations don't change what a child is learning, rather they change how a child is learning. And based on student needs, they might require an accommodation at the work site. For example, if a student with limited mobility is unable to move freely throughout the work site, accommodations such as wider doorways and unobstructed pathways are made. And that is because even our students who are working part-time or they're working in a work-based learning experience are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and they would have to, on the workplace, share what their concerns are and what accommodations they need, and they get the support of the work-based learning coordinator or the teacher connected to that work site to be able to do that. So example 2, if a student in a wheelchair is unable to access the tools required to effectively fulfill their job responsibilities, accommodations are made to ensure access. For example, height adjustment for shelves, workspaces, door handles, utilizations of remote controls, apps, etc. So all of these things go under the heading of reasonable accommodations. So for work-based learning experiences within the transition and college access centers, we've got job shadowing, community service and volunteering, career-focused research projects, school-based enterprise, entrepreneurship, and community-based work experiences. All of these different pieces are what your schools are doing during the school year for the training opportunity program. And the community-based work experience and the school-based enterprise and community service, those 3 are the main work activities for students during the summer youth employment program. And for our 14 and 15 years olds during summer youth, they work on career-focused research projects. So all of these different pieces connect to state-approved work-based learning experiences. Now, the advantages of work-based learning for your young person is it really makes the connections between academic instruction and the real world very, very clear. and students transfer those related soft skills, such as being on time, being responsible for their actions, and explaining themselves as the situation demands. It increases students' motivation and engagement. And we see that our students engaged in work-based learning have decreased attendance issue, and they increase their academic performance. And it really develops the levels of responsibility and maturity in students. They're much better advocates for themselves, and they're able to really connect with other people and develop positive relationships with different groups as part of their work-based learning. And it improves the academic and personal behaviors, and those personal behaviors have to do with persistence, engagement, work habits, organizational skills, and self-regulation. Self-regulation is a big piece for a significant amount of our students, and we see wonderful outcomes with work-based learning. And it strengthens problem solving, communication, and critical thinking skills for our students. And it also allows for occupational exploration, mainly seeing whether or not the students are interested in continuing with their work-based learning path, and really understanding how they can get to the top of their field by making personal investments in training or education. It also can offer an organized plan of training under actual business conditions, where students learn from the adults in their environment, like what degrees do you need, what kind of technical training do you need, and what are the other professional skills that you need to be successful at the different jobs. And it increases awareness of civil and social responsibilities. Mainly, students learn that they have to vote and be an active citizen in order to maintain the goals that they have for larger society. And it provides that entry-level job experience that can be reflected on a resume. All of our students are able to put down their experiences on their resume and really learn the great verbiage they need to really show off their skills. And it can also increase financial literacy, because we have a lot of students who want to maintain their abilities to get to spend their money in a way that leaves them with the most money afterwards while still achieving their different goals. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jonathan. And Jonathan, you'll just let me know when to change the slide. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Audrey, for all of that great information. So we're going to talk about college considerations for students with disabilities. As Audrey had mentioned, right, we are talking about transition supports and post-secondary readiness for students with disabilities. So just as Audrey reviewed all of the details regarding transition planning and also work-based learning, which is part of transition planning, especially for our students who are looking to gain meaningful work experience and internship experience. We're also going to talk about different pathways and different organizations that help students with disabilities during and after high school. So one of the things that we're going to discuss right now is college considerations for students with disabilities. Next slide, please, Audrey. And so we have many partnerships throughout the city regarding colleges and universities. One of our closest partners is CUNY. And so I'm going to review some of the different programs that CUNY has for students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So before we dive into the different programs offered at CUNY and services, I just wanted to discuss differences between high school and college. So in high school, students who have IEPs, 504 plans, and services are provided under IDEA. Schools identify and evaluate disability at no cost to students. Accommodations ensure student success. and parents are involved in the process. Now that happens during high school. What about college? So in college, there's no 504 IEP and services are provided under the ADA. However, students are still protected from discrimination under Section 504, and schools must provide accommodations as necessary. Now, I know there's a lot of acronyms here, so I don't want you guys to stress out. At the end of this presentation, we will be giving our contact information for all of the different TCACs or Transition College Access Centers throughout the 5 boroughs, and you are more than welcome to reach out to any of our offices. And if there's something within this presentation, whether if it's an acronym or whether if it's something that you don't understand, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. So students must self-identify to the Disability Services Office and present current documentation. Colleges do not provide evaluations. Accommodations ensure equal access. Success is the responsibility of the student. And college staff must have written permission to speak with parents and encourage students to manage their accommodations and services. So there's a huge difference between high school and college for students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So 3 steps to accommodations in college. So we highly recommend connecting with the Disability Services Office as soon as you decide with CUNY College or which CUNY college you will attend. During COVID-19, the easiest way to reach out is via email. And still, now that we're kind of post-COVID-19, although it's still very much in our lives, the best way is to reach out via email or a form on a college website. Now, again, we're highlighting CUNY, but this is true of any college, whether it's a private college, whether it's a public college or university. The best way is to reach out via email. We have found that that's the best response rate that students are getting. An accommodation specialist will reach out to schedule an interview to go over your accommodation request. At the meeting, accommodations will be determined in partnership with the Disability and Accessibility Office based on your access needs for each course. And number 3, you're ready to head to class, right? So you need to check in with your professors and check to see how they will be notified about your accommodations. The office may notify them for you, or you may receive a letter, note, or accommodations card that you need to show to your professors. Now, as someone who has taught at the college level, sometimes the accessibility office will let me know that there were students with disabilities and they wish for their accommodations, and sometimes they wouldn't. So it's a great best practice for students to notify their professors about any reasonable accommodations that need to be made. Next slide, please. So disability services tips. Try to make sure your disability documentation is updated before you exit high school. This can mean a full IEP, psychological testing, and or evaluation, or a medical note from your doctor, right? And this all varies on access needs. So your campus disability office can let you know what is needed. Now, again, I know we're highlighting CUNY, but this is true of any college campus. Accommodations can be applied retroactively at the last minute. Don't wait until 2 days before your first test or class. Your disability status and or diagnosis will not be shared with anyone outside of the disability office. Next slide, please. So I wanted to go over specifically 3 programs for students with disabilities that CUNY has. One is CUNY Leads, Project Reach, and CUNY Leads Plus. Next slide, please. So CUNY Leads, linking employment, academics, and disability services. So since 2008, CUNY Leads has existed and helped CUNY students with disabilities gain the confidence and skills to achieve successful academic and career outcomes. Leads advisors are located on each undergraduate CUNY campus, and it provides individualized career guidance and resources for students preparing to enter the workforce. And we at TCAC do have a very great partnership with CUNY, and we do promote CUNY Leads as well. Next slide, please. So how to connect to CUNY Leads. On most campuses, CUNY Leads is connected to a disability services office, but some advisors are housed in career services. Students do not have to register with the disability services office to sign up for CUNY Leads. And we have right here on this PowerPoint, we have a link, which is right under where it states Find Your Leads Advisor for any student who's interested in joining CUNY Leads. Please click on that link and it will take you to their webpage. Next slide, please. So CUNY Leads success, as you see, when they're discussing preparing their college students for employment, here is a list of different partnerships who CUNY Leads has partnerships with. And it's very great to also mention that we at TCAC also have partnerships with these different entities. So it's full circle. It is a great program, CUNY Leads, and it is aligned to our mission at TCAC, and we have similar partnerships with these different programs or different businesses. Next slide, please. So the next program I want to discuss is Project Reach. So Project Reach is a program on various CUNY campuses that provides no-cost additional layers of support to autistic students to assist with the transition to college life. Services may include peer mentoring, transition to college support, coaching services, student interest groups, and workshops. And REACH stands for Resources in Educational Autism as CUNY's hallmark. Next slide, please. So Project Reach's perspective, neurodiversity, brain differences are part of human diversity, social model versus medical deficient model, identity first versus person first, autistic versus person with autism. So Project Reach really works with the students with disabilities that are on the autistic spectrum. Next slide, please. So there are some potential challenges that students may face. And so Project Reach really does endeavor to work with these potential challenges that students may have. So there some students have social difficulties, executive functioning difficulties, difficulty engaging in self-advocacy, emotional challenges, depression, loneliness. And so Project Reach really aims to work not only with the academic part of a student's journey, but also their psychological and social emotional well-being. Next slide, please. So here, these are the different campuses where Project Reach currently has their program embedded within their colleges: Borough of Manhattan Community College, College of Staten Island, Brooklyn College, Hunter, Kingsborough, Queens College, LaGuardia, and LaGuardia. And so there is a link that will take you to Project Reach's application and the different program requirements. Next slide, please. So the next program and a final program that I just wanted to highlight is the CUNY Leads Plus. CUNY Leads Plus supports neurodivergent CUNY students who want to work on academic and career goals through a curriculum with a dedicated advisor. Leads Plus helps students succeed in class while they develop skills and receive guidance towards their chosen career path. This program is in conjunction, which we will talk a little bit about, Access VR. So students must be approved for services through Access VR in order to be able to join CUNY Leads Plus. Next slide, please. Also another program that I wanted to discuss is CUNY Unlimited, which is Inclusive Higher Education Alternative Pathway Program that CUNY does provide. It does have meaningful credential transition programs, modified individualized assessments. It is for associate's bachelor certification programs they provide. They provide reasonable accommodations and support programs. So this is just another one of the ways that CUNY is working with students with disabilities. Again, I do want to mention that I know we are highlighting CUNY, so we in this presentation, so we do have a great partnership with them. But again, there's different colleges out there throughout the 5 boroughs and throughout the different states that do offer similar programs for students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So there's also options for people with intellectual disabilities at CUNY, the Melissa Riggio Higher Education Program, which is also at the Borough of Manhattan Community College, College of Staten Island, Queens College, Hostess, and Kingsborough Community College. So just another highlight of another different program that CUNY does offer for students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So here is a breakdown of different links and different campus advisor resources that is available to students with disabilities, and here are the links. So we just wanted to just reemphasize that we do have a great partnership with CUNY, and that we just want to reemphasize the different links here as resources. Next slide, please. So also as additional resources, right, because as I mentioned before, we are highlighting CUNY, but we also want to highlight different programs and different colleges that support students with disabilities. So here's a link to for resources regarding college planning for students with physical disabilities, but also this link also has different programs in different colleges that support students with disabilities, whether if it's physical disabilities or any other type of disability. So it's a great resource for parents and students to have. Next slide, please. So we at the Transition College Access Centers, we have different partnerships with different organizations. And again, talking about preparing for transition planning and life after high school, we do partner with different organizations and different nonprofits and community-based organizations throughout the 5 boroughs. And one of the great partnerships that we have is the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, or OPWDD. Next slide, please. So OPWDD provides services to New Yorkers with developmental disabilities, including intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, and other neurological impairments. They help individuals with disabilities live in the home of their choice. Services include Medicaid-funded long-term care services, family support services, and employment support services. And at the bottom of this slide, there is the link to their website. Next slide, please. So OPWD has day services, which includes community habilitation services, day habilitation services, and pre-vocational services, which address the individual's vocational interests. Again, one thing that we do stress is that transition planning and post-secondary success, it's not just one pathway, it's multiple pathways. College, whether it's going to college, whether it's being in a vocational program, if a student wants to become a plumber or electrician or a carpenter, or it can just be independent living as well. There's many different pathways, and OPWDD Day Services do help students address some of those different choices. Next slide, please. So OPWDD also has front door services, which rests or relies on the philosophy of self-determination and the idea that people with developmental disabilities have the right to enjoy more meaningful relationships with family, friends, and others in their lives, experience personal growth, fully participate in their communities, and live in the home of their choice. Next slide, please. So another organization that we have a partnership with and do help students transition and help with post-secondary success is Access VR, or Adult Career and Continuing Education Services, Vocational Rehabilitation. Next slide, please. And so Access VR promotes the belief that all individuals, regardless of the type of disability, can benefit from vocational rehabilitation programs and should have jobs integrated into their community. It administers vocational rehabilitation and independent living programs, provides a wide array of services, provides services to students beginning up to 2 years prior to exiting high school, provides individual consultations, and provides information and support to employers. Next slide, please. So they offer career counseling and guidance, rehabilitation and assistive technology, training at a vocational school, community college, or on the job, information on reasonable accommodations, job placement, and job retention. Next slide, please. So one of the other organizations that we do have a great partnership with, and these are just some of our main partners. We can definitely go on for hours about the different partnerships we have with different businesses and organizations throughout the 5 boroughs. And again, I do really recommend that folks do reach out to your borough Transition and College Access Center, and we can go over a lot more of this information in detail. But one of our partners that I did want to mention is Include NYC. Next slide, please. So Include NYC is the early childhood and school age family and community engagement center for all boroughs in NYC. They're the leading source of training and information for young people ages 0 to 26 with known or suspected disabilities. And they have been, they were founded in 1983 and have been supporting people with disabilities for almost 40 years. Next slide, please. So the services include helpline, workshops, family engagement and youth programs, and news, information, and events. Next slide, please. So the helpline assists, it's a one-on-one consultation, which helps navigate systems like OPWDD and Access VR. So we just spoke about OPWDD and Access VR, and we at TCAC, we all have relationships together. So we all work together cohesively as a team throughout different organizations to have the best outcomes for our students. Also, they provide transition services for students and who may also be aging out, and post-secondary education and vocational options or plans. Next slide, please. So, some of the workshops that are included in their catalog includes Introduction to Transition Planning, Understanding Diploma Options and Pathways, Turning 18, Rights, Benefits, and Planning, and College Access for Students with Disabilities. Next slide, please. So online resources, right, includes transition, college, and work preparedness, tip sheets, videos, and helpful links. Next slide, please. So also they provide youth and transition services, or YTS. Next slide, please. So they have something that's called Career Launch, which is a training that is geared toward professionals in workforce development or job training programs. Participants increase their understanding of disability history and rights, develop strategies for creating inclusive and person-centered outcomes. So program components include 3 no-cost professional development trainings, lists of resources in each session, and technical assistance designed to provide support after trainings are completed. Next slide, please. So, Include NYC are partners of high schools throughout New York City's high school launch. Students will have an opportunity to strengthen their self-advocacy skills, increase their understanding of disability rights, discuss their IEP in depth, and explore post-secondary options and supports. So this is a very great part of the services that Include NYC provides. We at TCAC also provide similar services, which we alongside Include NYC plan and provide these workshops either alone or together. But we do work very closely together, and we do have similar programs and workshops that we offer students and families as well. Next slide, please. So Project Possibility, which is for a young person between the ages of 16 to 26 that lives in NYC and needs support in creating a plan based on interest, exploring applying to post-secondary options. And through this program, participants engage in one-to-one direct coaching sessions, connect with services, benefits, and support to support their goals, especially post-secondary goals, and build self-advocacy and self-determination as well. Another wonderful program provided by Include NYC. Next slide, please. So Bridges, which is one of their projects, one of their programs that started in 2016, helps with professional networking, financial literacy, healthy living, self-advocacy. And so the program components includes 12 student workshops, ongoing one-on-one support to review lessons with a youth educator, an opportunity to interact with peers in a safe place, excuse me, a safe space. Next slide, please. So Include NYC, just like TCAC, right? They do have community events. They have a Include NYC Fair, which is a disability resource fair, which includes bringing 100 organizations, over 100 organizations on a single day. They have College is Possible and Outdoors for Autism as well. And this is just one of the many community events that they do have. And I think it was important just to show this during this presentation, as there's a lot of resources. And we at TCAC have the privilege of partnering with Include NYC during their fair and during their many community events. Next slide, please. So this is the information for Include NYC. They have many digital resources. They have a weekly news and resource newsletter. They are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and their website is there, and it is available in both English and Spanish. Next slide, please. So these are some additional resources that we wanted to share: the disability law, high school versus post-secondary life, the transition timeline, which I highly recommend for parents to review. And this is starting at from middle school through high school, and college accommodations for students with disabilities, if college is the pathway that your son or daughter will want to pursue. Next slide, please. And this is the Transitioning College Access Centers. This is our information in each of our boroughs. We have an office in the Bronx at DeWitt Clinton High School. Also throughout each borough has a website which has similar information. Brooklyn TCAC is at the Boys and Girls High School. Manhattan is at the Alternative Education Complex on West 35th Street. Queens is on Sutphin Boulevard, and Staten Island is at the Michael J. Patrice Educational Complex. I really do suggest that everyone please visit the TCACs in person. If you can't go in person, please call or send an email. We are here to support you. I know this was a lot of information and we went through a lot, but please know that if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out or send an email to any of the TCACs, whichever borough you may reside in. They'll be very happy to support you and your student, you and your child as they transition, whether it's from middle school to high school or high school to college or to post-secondary life. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. On behalf of TCAC and my great colleague, Audrey Mangan, we want to thank you for listening to our presentation, and we hope to service and partner with you in the near future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you again. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Audrey. This was great content. We hope that you enjoyed this information and are leaving warm and informed. You can view this webinar and previous sessions on our YouTube channel. Again, this is one of our weekly webinar series that we offer through Beyond Access. Look for future upcoming sessions on our website link and look for additional communications in your inbox from our direct contact service, the Division of Specialized Instruction and Student Support. We thank you all for joining us for this evening's session. We hope that this was informative, and please take Jonathan's advice and visit one of our TCAC centers because they will provide you additional supports and resources in person. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great day.